The storm that changed everything nearly erased the future of humanity. Imagine standing in a freezing valley nearly 300,000 years ago. The sky is dark. Cold rain has been falling for days without stopping. Every piece of wood is soaked. Every cave feels colder than the last. And in the center of a small human camp, only one tiny fire is still burning. Scientists believe that by this time, early humans had learned to control fire, even though they could not easily create it whenever they wanted. That single flame was far more than a source of warmth. It cooked food, kept dangerous predators at a distance, gave light after sunset, and allowed families to survive freezing nights. Now, imagine that flame beginning to fade. An elderly woman carefully places the last pieces of dry wood onto the glowing embers. A young father shields the fire with his own body as cold wind pushes rain into the cave. Nearby, two frightened children huddle together, watching the flames grow smaller with every passing minute. No one speaks. Everyone understands what is at stake. Outside, the storm grows louder. The rain washes away animal tracks, making hunting almost impossible. Rivers overflow, cutting off familiar paths. The cold becomes more dangerous than hunger itself. Every hour without enough heat drains precious energy from the human body. But the greatest danger is still hidden in the darkness. As night falls, strange sounds echo across the valley. Hungry predators are moving. The storm showed no sign of stopping. By the fifth day, the fire had become smaller than anyone had ever seen. Thick smoke rose from the damp wood, but almost no heat reached the people gathered around it. The children shivered silently. The older members of the group wrapped themselves in animal hides, trying to hold on to the last bit of warmth. Scientists believe early humans depended on fire every single day. It provided heat, cooked food, frightened away predators, and made life in cold environments possible. But during long periods of heavy rain, keeping a fire alive may have been one of their greatest challenges. The tribe had a difficult choice to make: stay inside the cave and watch the fire slowly die, or leave the safety of the cave and search for dry wood in the middle of the storm. A young hunter stepped forward. He knew the nearby forest better than anyone else. Without saying a word, he picked up his wooden spear and disappeared into the cold rain. Two others followed him. Every step was dangerous. The ground had turned into deep mud. Fallen trees blocked their path, and fast-moving streams cut through the valley. Hours passed. The rain never stopped. The hunters searched beneath large rocks, inside hollow trees, and under thick cliffs where rain could not easily reach. Scientists suggest early humans likely looked for naturally sheltered places where dry wood could survive even during long storms. Then, one of the hunters stopped. Hidden beneath the roots of a giant fallen tree was a small pile of dry branches. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep hope alive. As they gathered the wood, a deep growl echoed through the forest. The hunters froze. Fresh footprints appeared in the wet ground. A large Ice Age predator was nearby. The dry wood, but carrying it home might cost them their lives. With the animal getting closer every second, the hunters had to make a choice that no one wanted to face. The hunters gripped their wooden spears and stood perfectly still. The growl came again. This time, it was closer. Through the falling rain, a massive Ice Age cave hyena slowly emerged from the darkness. Scientists believe cave hyenas were powerful predators and scavengers that could challenge even large animals. A small group of humans carrying precious dry wood would have been an easy target. No one moved. Running could trigger a chase. Fighting could mean certain death. For several long seconds, the only sounds were the rain, the wind, and the animals' heavy breathing. Then, the oldest hunter whispered a single word. Together. The three hunters slowly raised their spears and stood shoulder to shoulder. They shouted as loudly as they could, striking their spears against nearby rocks. The sharp echoes rolled through the valley. Scientists suggest that early humans often relied on teamwork, loud noises, and group displays to discourage dangerous predators whenever possible. Working together gave them a much better chance of survival than facing danger alone. The cave hyena stopped. It stared at the humans for a moment. Then, slowly, it turned and disappeared back into the storm. No one celebrated. The hardest part was still ahead. The hunters quickly gathered the dry branches and began the long journey back to the cave. Every step was slower than before because they refused to let even a single piece of wood become wet. Meanwhile, back at the cave, the last fire was barely alive. Only a few glowing embers remained beneath a layer of gray ash. The children had stopped talking. The adults watched the fading light in complete silence. If the hunters were too late, the fire would disappear forever. Just as the ember began to lose its glow. Footsteps echoed outside the cave. Someone was coming through the rain. But were they carrying hope? Or had they arrived too? The footsteps grew louder. A moment later, the three hunters rushed into the cave, soaked from head to toe, but still holding the bundle of dry branches above their heads. They had protected the wood with their own bodies during the entire journey home. No one wasted a second. The oldest woman carefully placed the smallest dry twigs beside the glowing embers. Everyone watched in complete silence. Nothing happened. Then, a tiny spark appeared. Another followed. Within moments, a small orange flame rose into the darkness. The cave filled with light once again. Children smiled for the first time in days. The adults let out quiet sighs of relief. Some embraced each other. Others simply stared at the fire, knowing how close they had come to losing everything. Scientists believe that for early humans, protecting fire was one of the most important survival skills ever developed. Fire provided warmth during freezing nights, made food safer and easier to digest, helped keep dangerous predators away, and created a safe place where families could gather, communicate, and share knowledge. That single flame represented far more than heat. It represented hope. As the storm finally began to weaken, smoke slowly drifted out of the cave and into the cold morning sky. The tribe had survived one of the hardest weeks of their lives, not because they were the biggest or the strongest, but because every person protected something greater than themselves. Scientists suggest that moments like these may have shaped human cooperation over thousands of generations. Protecting fire required planning, trust, courage, and teamwork. Those same qualities would later help humans spread across deserts, forests, mountains, and eventually every continent on Earth. We'll never know whether this exact story happened, but evidence shows that countless ancient families faced storms, freezing temperatures, predators, and impossible choices. Every generation that protected its fire gave the next generation another chance to survive. Maybe the greatest invention in human history wasn't fire itself. It was the people who refused to let it die. If that final flame had gone out, our story might have ended before it ever truly began. Like, subscribe, and follow Ancient Fire Stories for more amazing prehistoric survival stories.